Hello. For the next several minutes, I'm going to ask you to pay attention not to the present or the future. I want you to think about the past. I'd like you to think about the history of this department. After looking back, only then can we look forward to the future, yours and the department's. A wise person once said, a generation that ignores its history has no past and no future.
Hello, I'm Todd Spear.
And I'm Mike Carter. Today we're going to talk to you about the honorable history of Tampa Fire Rescue, taking pride in the department and its contribution to the community, and to remind you that each day we have an opportunity to make our own history.
The city of Tampa grew from the establishment of Fort Brooke in 1824 to a sleepy fishing village. Through the late 1800s, Tampa's fortune rose and fell with the activity surrounding the fort. As the city grew in the late 1800s, the cigar manufacturing community was established in Ybor City in West Tampa. During these pioneering days, fire was a constant threat. Wooden buildings and wooden boardwalk sidewalks would burn rapidly. To protect the businesses and surrounding community, volunteer fire departments were established. These fire departments were organized through a cooperative effort of community leaders, most of which not only bought equipment but also volunteered their time.
Firefighting in the 1800s was by means of bucket brigades. Men would line up, fill the buckets, typically from water drawn along the Jackson Street Canal, and pass the buckets down the line. The first organized volunteer company was formed in 1884. Just a couple of years later, in 1886, there were 7 volunteer fire companies. They were using hand pumps and other equipment donated by prominent businessmen who were active in the department. These prominent Tampa families included names such as Ybor, Henderson, Talaferro, Leslie, Knight, Muji, and many others. These were not men looking to make history. They were trying to create a safer community, and they succeeded in both.
To provide firefighting water for the growing community, a system of hydrants fed by artesian wells was installed, and later water improvements included water towers and pump houses. Since equipment was pulled to fires by firefighters on foot, they became skilled runners and held many contests to prove it. Firefighters from across the state would meet each year in a week of competitions and parties, and the major cities of Tallahassee, Orlando, Key West, and Jacksonville were Tampa's main competition. Tampa was host to the contest in 1890, and more than 3,000 people visited the city. The Tampa Alerts won the cup. Fire companies were very competitive in operation as well. Stories tell of 2 companies arriving at the Polk Street hydrant at the same time. They stretched their hose to the house fire and began fighting for possession of the fire plug. The house burned down before the fight was settled.
A.J. Harris, an experienced firefighter from Savannah, moved to Tampa and joined the volunteers. In 1889, a fire destroyed most of the buildings on a block surrounded by Washington, Franklin, Tampa, and Whiting Streets. To provide leadership to the young fire department, Harris was made chief shortly afterward. Several major fires in the late 1880s moved City Council to consider purchasing new equipment and creating a full-time professional fire department. 2 new LaFrance steam engines, the Monrara, stationed at number 2, and the Solomonson, stationed at number 5. They were named for the men who paid for the horses that pulled them. Even in the 1800s, the political process moved slowly. But finally, on May 10, 1895, the full-time professional department was authorized by City Council, and A.J. Harris was named as the fire chief.
At the turn of the last century, there were 5 fire stations protecting the city. Station 1 was downtown on the corner of Florida and Lafayette, now known as Kennedy Boulevard. Fire headquarters shared a building with the police department and City Hall. A new City Hall replaced this building in 1915, and we know that today as Old City Hall. Station number 2 protected Ybor City at 1313 8th Avenue. This building is still standing and sits just south of the old cigar factory known as Ybor Square. In Hyde Park, Station 3 sat at Platt Street near Magnolia. An original wooden station stood behind the brick fire station built to replace it, and that replacement station still stands. Station 4 was also in Ybor and sat at 1801 9th Avenue near today's Centennial Park. A historical marker notes that location of the raised building. Tampa Heights, just north of downtown, was protected by Station 5 at 1807 North Florida Avenue, next to the Palm Avenue Baptist Church. A newer, yet now retired Station 5 was built a few blocks further north in 1925.
Firefighters have always been hardworking and dedicated. At the turn of the last century, Tampa firefighters worked for 10 to 12 days at a stretch without a day or night off. They only went home for meal breaks as long as they could get back to the station within an hour. A firefighter's salary at the time was $600 a year. This continued until a two-platoon system was put into effect in 1919. These firefighters would work from either 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. or they would work from 6 p.m. to 8 a.m., and they would rotate every 2 weeks. In 1941, those two platoons changed to work 24 hours on, 24 hours off. In 1959, the department took another step with the implementation of a three-platoon system. This system reduced the firefighter's work week from 72 hours per week to 56 hours per week. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, horses were a very important part of the firefighters' lives. Just like today, firefighters of old took great care of their equipment and the exercising, grooming, and training of the horses. That took up much of their day. These animals would respond at the sound of the bell to stand in front of their steamer and wait to be harnessed. These sturdy horses would then pull the heavy equipment with all their strength. A member of the department in 1903 remembers the fastest time for leaving the station with horse and harness was in 8 seconds. There are many phrases within the fire service that have existed for a long time. Jerrying is one such colorful phrase. The term Jerry began around the early 1900s. At that time, all extra personnel reported to Station 1 for daily work assignments. When men who were regularly assigned to a position were on vacation or sick, a rookie was sent from Station 1 to fill in for the day. These men would then travel to this station via our city streetcar system. In those days, the conductor was commonly referred to as a Jerryman. As the rookies traveled daily, people took to calling them Jerrymen as well. This phrase has stayed with us through the years, and even today, the rookie will still be told, "Hey, you need to Jerry to Station 5 for the day."
In 1909, Chief Harris purchased the first motorized vehicle to start replacing the horse-drawn apparatus. The first vehicle was named the Mary H., after the chief's wife. Built by LaFrance, this was a combination chemical and hose wagon. Shortly after the death of Chief Harris in 1910, his successor, Chief Matthews, ordered the purchase of a motorized chief's car that also did duty as a chemical wagon. The vehicle carried a chemical agent of bicarbonate of soda and water to extinguish fires. The public was amazed at how quickly this vehicle could respond, and this set the stage for the department's transition from horse-drawn apparatus to motorized. Ironically and tragically, 20 years later, Chief Matthews was killed responding to an alarm when his chief's car collided with the ladder truck responding from Station 1. In 1911, a new fire headquarters opened at Jefferson and Zack Streets. This station was in continuous use until 1978, when the present fire headquarters was opened. The 1911 station is now home to the Tampa Firefighters Museum.
In 1925, the growing city annexed the nearby city of West Tampa. This move doubled the size of the city and added firefighters and equipment to Tampa Fire Department. Reports indicate that this enhanced the department's ability to serve the citizens of Tampa. To ensure firefighter safety, in 1943, Tampa appointed the first training officer who organized training for fire department personnel. Today, Tampa Fire Rescue has a first-class, state-certified training center, which was recently recognized as the best in the state. Continuing to enhance safety for fire crews in the 1940s, when funeral homes ran the ambulance services, Tampa Fire Department was committed to protecting their own by creating its own rescue squads. The rescue squads were originally developed to provide medical care to firefighters. The creation of rescue squads foreshadowed a significant shift in the business of the fire department. In 1966, a federal report indicated that pre-hospital medical care in America was either poor or non-existent, and the age of emergency medical services began. Under the guidance of the Hillsborough County Medical Association, Tampa became the third department in the country with a paramedic program. In 1954, when the department first began keeping such records, Tampa Fire Department responded to 269 emergency rescue calls, about 10% of our call volume. Last year, the department responded to over 55,000 rescue calls, about 85% of our total responses. This tremendous change in responses pressed the department to change its name from Tampa Fire Department to Tampa Fire Rescue in 1995.
Tampa and its fire department have continuously grown and changed. The history of Tampa Fire Department has been colorful in many different ways. Just as the city's history has not always been stellar, neither has the fire department's. In 1903, Tampa Fire Department had the dubious distinction of being the first in the nation to go on strike. They were protesting the autocratic actions of Chief Harris, and Harris's first reaction was to fire them all. After hiring replacement firefighters, Harris did continue to talk with the striking firefighters and eventually rehired all but the handful of troublemakers that incited the strike. Tampa made history again in 1976 when 23 people were indicted by the U.S. Attorney's Office for participating in an arson-for-profit ring, including 4 members of the fire department. The trial was the first large-scale use of the then-new federal racketeering statutes. 3 pled guilty, 4 were acquitted, including the fire marshal and 1 firefighter, and the rest were convicted. Throughout most of its history, Tampa has had a busy seaport. A major waterfront fire occurred in 1919 that started on the roof of the Home Line warehouse on Water Street in downtown. The fire cause was blamed on cinders from the smokestack of the steamship Crescent, which had left its dock shortly before the fire broke out. By the time the flames were under control an hour and a half later, the fire had spread to a number of buildings along the water's edge. All available firefighters responded. Burning oil from a leaking tank spread across the river. The spectacular fire caused the power plant to cut power to about 3/4 of the city, and many had to walk home from work as the streetcars had all been idled. Citizens and officials rallied around talk of the need for the city to purchase a fireboat. 40 years later, the city purchased just such a boat. The Gale Holland served the city well for a number of years and was eventually replaced by the Francis Bellamy. In 1988, the Port Authority purchased an amphibious fireboat that could drive to emergencies and then drive down a boat ramp to launch itself. In 1993, the city bought a 30-foot Sea Ark capable of pumping 1,250 gallons of water per minute. In 2003, a 27-foot Boston Whaler was added to the fleet, and the high-maintenance amphibious fireboat was shelved. Today, the pride of Tampa's marine fleet is the 69-foot Firestorm that can pump 12,000 gallons of water per minute, as much as 8 fire trucks. Tampa's first municipal airport opened in 1928 on a 130-acre grass field named for cattleman and land developer John H. Drew. Drew Field became a military base at the onset of World War II, and in 1952 it became the Tampa International Airport. In 1960, the airport opened a fire station that was staffed by Tampa firefighters. Tampa firefighters today work from a state-of-the-art fire station, protecting one of the top airports in the country, and maintains a staff of 10 specially trained firefighters around the clock. Tampa firefighters have met or exceeded federal response standards for more than a decade.
In 1908, Tampa suffered one of its worst fire losses. A fire started on the wood-shingled roof of a boarding house at 19th Street and 12th Ave in Ybor City. The first fire crew arrived from Station 4 and had the fire knocked down in just a few minutes. That was until the steamer from Station 2 hooked up to a hydrant and sucked the hydrant dry. In spite of the efforts of the crews, the flames grew higher and began to spread to adjacent buildings. The fire spread block by block east from 20th Street to 16th Street and north from 12th Ave up to Columbus Drive. It got so bad that fire crews considered dynamiting homes to create a fire break. The fire spread until it reached the undeveloped wooded area at Columbus Drive. After 5 hours and hard work by every firefighter and piece of equipment in Tampa, Ybor City, and West Tampa, the flames were extinguished. The fire had damaged 55 acres of homes, factories, and businesses, a total of 223 buildings. The citizens of Tampa and communities all across the country responded with a spontaneous outpouring of assistance and support. The total losses exceeded $1 million. In 2000, a new 454-unit apartment complex under construction in Ybor City caught fire after a forklift operator snagged a high-tension power line. The fire spread quickly through the 3-story, 6-square-block complex. The construction of the apartment was at a very vulnerable stage. One fire officer called it a vertical lumberyard. The spectacular fire quickly consumed the construction site and scorched a number of exposures around the area. Quenching this blaze required a concerted effort from all members of Tampa Fire Rescue. The communications center dealt with hundreds of calls about the fire and handled radio traffic from dozens of units on scene. 3 mechanics were on scene to help keep the trucks pumping and to protect the engines from running too hot from exposure to the extreme heat of the flames. The supply division supplied water, ice, radio batteries, and other tools needed to keep the battle going. Fire inspectors responded to reports of spot fires caused by embers falling into the surrounding neighborhoods. Just as the apartment fire was nearly extinguished, fire crews noticed smoke coming from the roof of the post office at the northern side of the apartments, on the corner of 19th Street and 12th Avenue. They made their last stand against the 2000 fire at the very same corner where the 1908 fire had begun. History had come full circle.
In 1955, a large fire in the Superior Fertilizer Company on East Broadway added the element of hazardous materials to the dangers faced by firefighters. This was considered to be one of the most dangerous fires in Tampa history, as parathion, sulfur, and other chemicals stored in the plant were burned. More than 200 firefighters fought this fire, and 22 were injured, and 2 were hospitalized in critical condition. Unfortunately, records don't indicate how well the injured recovered. In 2006, an employee filling propane tanks for delivery accidentally caused a flash fire. That fire caused a huge blaze and soon sent dozens of exploding propane tanks flying through the sky, raining down twisted steel on the responding firefighters. The main concern at this blaze was the 30,000-gallon propane storage tank at the edge of the filling area. Heroic efforts kept the main tank from exploding. Occupants of a nearby work release center were seen running toward the Orient Road jail, seeking a safer shelter from the nightmarish scene.
Over the years, 16 Tampa firefighters have made the ultimate sacrifice for our community. In 1955, Captain Wooten, a 42-year veteran of the fire department, collapsed at a fire at bay window sales on West Waters Avenue. Efforts by firefighters to revive him were unsuccessful, and he was pronounced dead at the hospital from an apparent heart attack. The extreme physical stresses of firefighting make heart attacks a very real threat. Over the years, 5 Tampa firefighters have died from heart attacks in the line of duty because of firefighting and emergency work. Even responding to alarms can be dangerous. A motor vehicle accident in 1929 claimed the life of Chief Matthews, and an earlier accident killed Lieutenant W.C. Eccles when he was thrown from the horse-drawn steamer, Engine 5, on the way to a fire in February of 1906. Eccles was steering the horse team. The engineer riding on the back did not realize Eccles was missing until they missed a turn. The engineer climbed over the truck, took control of the horses, and continued to the working fire at the DeSoto Hotel downtown. The heavy steamer had crushed the lieutenant's legs, and he died from his injuries a few days later. Firefighters must always be vigilant as they travel to and from the emergency scenes. In 2001, driver-engineer Jack Barker died of complications from hepatitis. While contagious diseases have always been around, the increased number of emergency calls and the increased complexity of life-saving procedures done in the field have caused a much greater exposure and danger to our firefighters. Jack's death reminds us of the need to always use proper levels of personal protection at emergencies.
In the early days of Tampa Fire Department, we saw how the most concerned, the most involved community members were the heart of the department. That is still true today. The career is demanding, complex, and dangerous. This is one reason we only hire the best candidates possible, the cream of the crop. For decades, firefighting was solely the realm of white males, and that did not reflect the community that they served. Tampa's first black firefighter was hired in 1968. The first women firefighters were hired in 1978. Today, our department is much more representative of the diversity of our community and continues to explore creative ways to encourage a more diverse workforce.
Our firefighters can be very proud of their heritage. Tampa Fire Rescue has grown and changed as Tampa has grown and changed. We have evolved to keep up with the demands and expectations of our community. Services provided include medical rescue, hazardous materials teams, response to terrorism threats, specialized airport protection, urban search and rescue teams, trained search and rescue dogs, tactical paramedics that support police SWAT teams, public fire safety education, hurricane planning and awareness, fire prevention and inspection, arson investigations, advanced firefighter training, fireboat and marine firefighting operations, water rescue, and the list of services grows each and every year.
There is much more to the colorful and informative history of our department's past. We learn lessons from our history that help us respond to the future. We want our firefighters and citizens to be proud of our history, to remember the lessons of the past, and remember, we make history every day, so make it your best.
Over the decades, Tampa Fire Rescue has developed several core values, family values, to guide the department and our firefighters. Without these core values, we cannot fulfill the mission of the department, which is to protect our community by providing immediate response to all requests for service. In other words, we are there for the community anytime, any place, and in any circumstance to help the residents at their time of greatest need. Our best day is their worst day. These core values, as embodied on our challenge coin, are honor, courage, pride, and loyalty. Honor, which is personal integrity, is paramount. Your character is defined by what you do when no one is looking. The public trusts us. They let us into their homes, businesses, into their lives. They call on us to take care of their loved ones when they're most vulnerable. Earn what others have already established for you. The author, Ambrose Redmoon, wrote, "Courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the judgment that something else is more important than fear." We must be men and women of courage in order to perform our task. In situations when people are leaving a burning building or they see someone collapse to the floor, you and I are called upon to act decisively to do what is best for them at that moment. Another core value is pride. Pride can be defined as the satisfaction with your achievement, a sense of one's own worth. Firefighters must take pride in a job well done. Therefore, we must keep our mind and bodies, vehicle and equipment ready for action. While on duty, firefighters see their equipment as an extension of themselves. That's why firefighters are regularly seen washing their trucks and maintaining their equipment and training. The fourth core value at Tampa Fire Rescue is loyalty. Loyalty and honor forms the brotherhood found in the fire service and here at Tampa Fire Rescue. It's loyalty to those around you, both on and off duty. And this comes from an understanding of the dangers and difficulties that we face. Firefighters bond as we work together 24 hours a day. Daily, we experience some of the most stressful situations that any person can face. We cope with this stress together. We work together during disasters and emergencies. We live together, often supporting each other through raising children, the death of loved ones. We must also exert positive peer pressure, helping others to do the right thing. Every one of us exerts influence every day, whether you realize it or not. So what type of influence do you exert? Over the years, thousands have built their careers on our core values and the traditions here at this department. Some have even died serving the citizens of this city. This department is bigger than just one person or a career. It's existed for over 120 years. And as long as there is a city to serve, there will be men and women ready to provide the service the public needs. Tampa Fire Rescue is likely to be here for another 100 years, and maybe another 100 years after that. The influence that you make on this department where you work can last longer than your career.
To be successful as a Tampa firefighter, you have to adhere to the basics. You have to possess a love for helping others, both on and off duty. This is what will help keep you from getting worn down and burned out. You have to love rising to a challenge, whether you're helping someone with a medical emergency, a car wreck, or a major conflagration. You need to be ready to respond. Firefighters do not typically want to sit around. They want to be ready for a challenge when it comes. You have to own a love for the job, an unshakable passion, and believe that your career is the most important contribution you can make to your community and your fellow firefighters. Be proud of what you do. Show that pride on and off duty. You are more than just a firefighter. You're a member of Tampa Fire Rescue. Learn lessons from our past and Emulate the successes and avoid the failures. Look to the future, both yours and the department's. Remember, if you want to be a leader, it doesn't just happen the day of your promotion. You need to act now the way you want to lead in the future. Every day we create our own history, our own lessons for future firefighters. I'm asking you to make good choices so you can leave a strong legacy.